Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Last year, you may have seen a short video circulating on Facebook about the life of an entrepreneur, and that video was produced and featured a gentleman by the name of Patrick Bet-David. Now, I remember seeing that video, and I remember saying to myself, you know, this is actually really well done, but who the heck is this guy? Well, that video was viewed more than 30 million times, and it turns out that Patrick is the real deal, and as you're going to hear today, he has one hell of a story. He fled Iran as a child refugee, and he made his way to the United States through the military as a member of the 1st Airborne Division. After a few menial jobs and attempts at getting into the financial services industry, he finally came into the insurance world, and he started his own agency, which has grown to offices in 49 states with over 3,000 agents. And now, in what little spare time he has, he records and posts training videos for young entrepreneurs around the world, many of whom are back in Iran and literally watch his videos in hiding as they would be thrown in jail if they were caught. He has an incredibly fascinating and inspiring story that captures the true essence of a self-made man. You are going to enjoy this immensely, especially with all that has been happening around the world and all of the negativity, all of the refugee stuff that's been happening. To hear one inspiring story that has come from a similar circumstance decades ago. Before we jump in, I do have a recommended resource for this week's episode, and this is actually a methodology that's going to guarantee that you grow a little bit richer every single day. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a wealth accumulation goal for this year. By December 31st, I want to have saved up X number of dollars, and I recommend that you have a similar goal as well, and once you do, here is what I would suggest. Take that number and divide it by 52 for 52 weeks in a year or 12 months, whichever you'd prefer. So if your goal is to save up $100,000 this year, then you'd have to save $8,333 per month or roughly $2,000 per week. Now log into your banking system. I use Wells Fargo, and I want you to set up an automated weekly or monthly transfer for that amount to another account. If you need to open up a second bank account, go ahead and do that. Now, if that amount is too much of a burden, you're like, man, Mike, that would leave me with nothing at the end of each month. Go ahead and cut it down to a number that won't do that. What is most important here is that you simply set up and implement the process. It'll take you about 2 minutes, but as a result of that 2 minutes, you will have guaranteed that you hit your wealth accumulation goal 12 months from now, and that you will actually be richer than you were before without ever having to think of it again. So please do this, and for those of you who do, I want you to contact me a year from now and tell me how it has changed your life. With that being said, please help me welcome Patrick Bet-David. Mr. Patrick Bet-David, welcome to Self-Made Man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. How you doing?
Awesome. We're virtual neighbors here in Texas. You're in Dallas, and I am in Austin. And how is the great city of Dallas doing at the moment?
You know, they're just trying to capitalize on the system of capitalism. So that's what they're doing.
Well, the state of Texas has been doing that quite well. I think we're gradually sucking California dry.
You know, it's amazing you say that. I just moved here from California 10 months ago.
Oh, well, there you go. You're one of them. Awesome. Well, welcome to Texas. It's an awesome place and an awesome state. I used to live in Dallas for a few years as well, and next time you're down in Austin, maybe for South by Southwest, you'll have to swing by and grab coffee at some point.
I look forward to it. I definitely look forward to it.
So I came across yourself probably about a year ago, and I think a lot of my colleagues did as well, when you came out with a 90-second video on Facebook and YouTube. At least on the YouTube one, it almost has 900,000 views. Facebook is probably more than that. But it was titled The Life of an Entrepreneur in 90 Seconds. And it was a really well-done video on what life is actually like as an entrepreneur, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So how did you... Well, let me ask you this. What inspired you to make that video? Because there's no real call to action. You're not selling anything. It was really just this motivational hunk of truth that you put out there to the world that was really received quite well.
Yeah, it's I see so much content that goes viral, so I had to decide between making a video about cats and dogs and versus making a video about entrepreneurship, and we decided to take the tougher route because it's very easy for me to put a Chewbacca mask on and laugh a little bit and get 195 million views, and we try to take the tough route of inspiring entrepreneurs around the world. But Mike, the reality part of it is, you know what it is. You've been an entrepreneur for a while. There are times where we as entrepreneurs, as innovators, as disruptors, we at times are going through certain difficulties of trying to build our business and we feel it's only us going through it. And sometimes it's good to get a message out there to say, look, you're not by yourself. This is part of paying the price. Just like getting married, no one gives you a manual telling you what it is to get married. And definitely no one gives us a manual about kids when next thing you know, they're pooping all over your clothes. We don't know how to call an audible on that. Or middle of the night, you're waking up every 2 hours and you have to go to work on 2.5 hours of sleep for a straight 6 months. No one told us about that. And, how are you going to handle when a baby is born and you and your wife are not having any private time for 4 months? And as a man, we don't want to talk to anybody else about it because it's embarrassing. No one told us about that. And I think the things that no one wanted to talk about that entrepreneurs struggle with, I kind of just chose to talk about it and highlight it. And all of a sudden we realized there's a big audience for it. Now, were we thinking the Facebook video was going to end up getting 30 million plus views? No. But did we think it was going to resonate with some people? Yes. And apparently much larger audience than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for those who are unfamiliar, with your name or your work or your history, if you could take a couple of minutes to walk us through your personal story as an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Iran. I lived there for 10 years. 6 months after Khomeini died, he died on June 23rd, I think it's June 3rd, 89. 6 weeks later, we escaped. We went to Germany. I lived at a refugee camp in Germany for about a year and a half. And then in Germany was my first experience of entrepreneurship. Super Mario Brothers was coming out. And at the refugee camp, nobody had a Super Nintendo. And I had this friend of mine. His name was Jan, a Czechoslovakian guy at that time. And his sister, Katarina, was extremely attractive. And I really liked this girl. And he really liked Super Mario Brothers. And I said, look, if I get Super Mario Brothers, can you play with Super Mario Brothers and I play with your sister? And it was an arrangement that we made. Now, obviously, that's not how we talked about it, but I said I have to get the Super Mario Brothers. So found a local swimming pool that we went to in Erlangen. This place had 5 different pools. And in Germany, people drink beer there like a, newborn baby drinks milk. I mean, it's like their milk. They have beer with cereal in Germany. So long story short, I went to the owner of the pool and I said, look, what can we do for me to help you out? I see beer bottles everywhere. I said, what about if I clean it for you? What will you give me? He says, I'll give you 5 pfennig, which is like 5 pennies per bottle you turn in. And I said, sure. I knew I needed 249 marks, which is roughly 5,000 bottles. And I took 30 days to collect 5,000 bottles at this pool during the summer. I got the 250 marks, went to Kaufhof, which is kind of like the Sears of Germany. And I bought the Super Mario Brothers on my own dime, came back to the camp, and I was the cool kid on campus at the refugee camp. And everybody was playing the Super Mario Brothers. And I ended up spending a lot of time with Katarina. So it was a kind of a cool exchange that took place.
Yeah, that's a cool story, and I have to ask you because this is the first opportunity I've ever had,
sure,
with a guest on the show who has spent time in a refugee camp. Obviously, that is a big topic over the last year here globally. What was that experience like?
It was crazy because everything you visualize it being, it's kind of like that. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of who do I trust? Like I remember one guy who I initially thought was my friend. And this guy happened to be from Afghanistan. Nothing against people from anywhere. There's good and bad people from everywhere. And I entrusted this guy. And this guy ended up being a kid that stabbed me in my stomach. I'm 11 years old. This kid stabs me. And I wasn't crazy stabbed, but he still stabbed me. And we got into a fight. I'm like, wait a minute. What the hell was this all about? He was maybe a year older than me. So there is some of the madness that does take place. And being a guy, my mother's Armenian, my father's Assyrian. I'm born in Iran. So I come from a Christian lineage from a Muslim country. There was a lot of discrimination going on at the refugee camp. So everything you see on TV, all the name calling, all that stuff we experienced while I was at the refugee camp. We had people from Albania, people from Yugoslavia, pretty much anybody that was escaping any kind of a dictatorship regime or any kind of a communistic regime that just wasn't working out and they wanted to have a shot at either living in Germany or making their way to America. That's what the camp was really all about. And here we are with all these kids, all these fears that we have that we share together. So it definitely, on the brighter side, it definitely taught you a lot of human nature skills. Like you learned by seeing a lot of bad things to be a little bit more paranoid growing up. Maybe that can also help you out in business a little bit.
Yeah, I could imagine. That's just such an amazing experience that clearly has left a mark and would leave an impact on a person. So thank you for sharing that. So as you started to grow a little bit older, you moved to the United States. You eventually made it here. You were what, 13, 14, 15 years old around that time?
I came November 28, 1990, which I was 12 years old. And we came to Glendale, California. And then I lived in Glendale, California for about 6 years. I was a kid with a 1.8 GPA. I didn't do too well in school. And right after school, everybody went to college. I went straight to the Army. I was at the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, and served in the military for a few years. Then I got out. And when I got out, I wanted to be the next Mr. Olympia, the next Middle Eastern Arnold Schwarzenegger that was going to marry a Kennedy, that was going to go into Hollywood, that was going to go and, be the next actor, Hollywood star, and then win 6, 7, 8 Mr. Olympias, until I realized how much steroids and growth hormone you had to do. So I said, maybe I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia. So started working at Bally's, Bally Total Fitness. I don't know if you remember Bally's back in the days. I started working at Bally's. And that was my first real organized experience in sales. And then from there, I started dating a girl who was working at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. And she would pick me up in a nice car every other time we would go out. I was just blown away by her success at 25 years old. And I said, what do you do? She said, I work at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. I said, how can I work over there? And she said, well, you need to go to get a degree. They need a 4-year degree as a requirement for you to submit an application. I said, I'm not going to school. She said, well, they're not going to hire you. I said, well, let's see what can happen. So back then, Mike, you may remember this. We used to fax resumes back in the days. It wasn't this online stuff. It was faxing. So I made a resume, and my resume was as embarrassing as it gets because it had Haagen-Dazs, it had Bob's Big Boy, it had Burger King, and it had Army and Bally Total Fitness. Nothing about it says this dude's going to be successful. So I said, I got to get creative. I made a cover letter. On the cover letter said the following. I took my best joke that I had at the time. And the first thing you read in my cover letter is the joke. Then after the joke, it says, if you're reading this and you're laughing right now, that's exactly how all my clients are going to feel like when they do business with me. They're going to love me. If you want somebody like me part of your team, give me a call. And then my resume was underneath the cover letter. So I faxed this to 100 different places. I faxed it to Goldman Sachs. That was an automatic no. I faxed it to Merrill. I got 2 interviews. I faxed it to Smith Barney. I faxed it to Morgan. I faxed it to a few other places. Out of 100 faxes, 30 called back. 15 of them said this is very creative, and they laughed at me. But they said very, very creative. 15 gave me interviews. 3 offered me jobs, and I started on Morgan Stanley Dean Witter a day before 9/11 on 9/10 of 2001. That was my first day. And then a couple months later, I got my Series 7, 66, 31, 20, 26 Life and Health. And I started with the financial industry. I left to Transamerica. 7.5 years I was with them. I traveled all over the world. You name a place I went to. And then in October of 2009, started PHP Agency out of one office in Northridge, California with about 66 agents. And we focused specifically on insurance, annuities, and retirement products. And we grew that from one office with 66 agents to now 3,000 agents in 49 states. It's been just an incredible surge that we've had over the last few years.
So let's dive into that in a little bit more detail. What does PHP stand for, and what do you specifically offer through it?
Yeah, so it's investments in insurance products. PHP stands for People Helping People. But what we mainly market is, so think about AIG, think about Foresters, think about Nationwide, think about all these major life insurance companies. We market their products for them by creating a marketing channel, by creating a distribution channel with licensed agents. That's what we do. In essence, we are a New York Life. We are a State Farm Farmers that markets life insurance and retirement products.
Very good. And so you spent, you clearly had a knack for entrepreneurship and for selling. Yet you spent most of your early careers, working for someone else in the financial services industry. Mm-hmm. Going off and starting this, PHP basically is a huge endeavor. What prompted you to make that leap of faith, and who did you study, or who inspired you as a young entrepreneur? Who are you learning from?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's a two-part question. Let me address the first one here on what prompted me to do this. I never, ever had any plans of leaving Transamerica. Never. I was in love with the company. I was in love with the concept. I was in love with the people I was working at outside of two people. And I'll tell you, the reason why I left Bally's was because of one person. And the reason why I eventually left Transamerica was because of what happened with that company. And I'll tell you both of them. Back in the days when I worked at Bally Total Fitness, I had a boss. His name was Robbie. And Robbie was, my hero at the time. He's the first person that recommended me to read How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. And so I started reading books, and now I've read 1,200, 1,300 business books. And that became my degree by becoming an autodidact. But, one time I sat with Robbie, and the club I wanted to work at, Mike, was a club called Bally Total Fitness in Hollywood off El Centro, which happens to be the biggest Bally Total Fitness in America. This is in Hollywood. Everybody wanted to work over here. I started off with Culver City. Culver City is right outside of Sony headquarters. If you know where Sony headquarters lie, right off of Venice Boulevard and Overland, right outside of Santa Monica. So I work out of the worst club that's in a basement. The place smells so funky because it had a sauna that hadn't been cleaned up. So imagine a funky, sweaty type of place. And we rocked it with that club. So they promoted me to Hollywood. And then from Hollywood, Robbie comes to me and says, Pat, I want to move you to Chatsworth Bally's. Chatsworth Bally's at the time, Mike, let me put some things in perspective. Chatsworth, if you don't know about the city of Chatsworth, Ron Jeremy lives in Chatsworth. And if you know who Ron Jeremy is, he is not a famous IT guy. Ron Jeremy is in the porn industry. 80% of all porn produced in the world at that time was being shot out of Chatsworth. So Chatsworth Bally's, most of your customers were porn people. And I'm not trying to take this off base. You're probably asking yourself, what the hell is this guy talking about? Stay with me here. And so he takes me there, and the club was only doing 42% of goal. Within 60 days, we moved the 42% to 115%. And there's only one condition why I said I'll move to Chatsworth. He said, if you go out there, you do your part, I'll bring you back to Hollywood as a weekend manager, which is what I wanted to be, because Mike, it would pay me $55K per year, man. I was going to be rich with this $55,000 a year salary that they were going to give me. So I go to Chatsworth. We take the numbers up to 115%. Then it comes time where that positioning is opening up in Hollywood. I tell Robbie to come inside, and Robbie comes. I said, Robbie, I'm so excited, man. I hit the numbers 2 months in a row back to back. We did 115%. When do you want to move me to Hollywood Bally's? He says, well, I have to tell you, somebody else took the position over you. I says, what do you mean? He says, yeah, somebody else did. I said, what's his name? He said, Edwin Guerra. I'll never forget this guy's name, Edwin Guerra. I said, Edwin took the position. He says, yeah, Edwin took the position. I said, how is that even possible? He says, well, it's seniority. I said, what do you mean seniority? He's been here 6 years. You've only been here for 9 months. I said, have you looked at the leaders bulletin? He looks at the leaders one because I had a printout. I said, back to back to back, out of a small club, I've been beating this guy, and I'm not even 1/4 the size of the big club. He says, well, he's been here for 6 years. I said, you're going to give the position over seniority because of a guy has been here longer than I have, even though he's not as good as me? He said, I have to do that. I said, no problem. Here's my 1 day notice. I left. Probably a dumb move I made because 2 years later I had to go beg him for a job because I lost everything. But I made a bold enough move to realize if I'm working in an environment that I don't have a specific KPI, a way that you can measure me for me to hit a promotion based on guidelines, and I can be judged based on that, I can't have a job. So then Transamerica was the following. When I was at Transamerica, the similar thing happened. A lady who had been an assistant all her life got a promotion to vice president, where she started controlling my promotion and other people's promotions over everybody else. And I had a field vice chairman promotion. I'll never forget this. They did not want to promote me because I did not want to befriend two people on Facebook. And they said, you have to befriend us on Facebook because we have to see your activity before we promote you. I got my attorneys on a line with them, with their attorneys. And my attorney confirmed, are you truly telling us that he's not getting his promotion because he doesn't want to befriend you on Facebook? They said, yes. Documentation, we have the email till today. I said, if I have to work in a place and I have to befriend you on Facebook for me to be able to stay in this company, well, you have this much political power, I'm not doing it. I left. There was another guy that was playing some games with us, that there wasn't a set criteria on what to do to get some victories that we had. I had to make that tough decision. And now, as far as you said, who helped me with clarity and all that stuff, there were a ton of people in that company I learned from. I have a lot of good friendships, lots of people that gave me a lot of great direction, lots of people in life, my father, a lot of dead mentors, books that I've read. But it was just a decision that I had to make where I wanted to create an opportunity, a company where the philosophy was very simple, Mike. This is my philosophy on what we do. I have a very simple philosophy on how to treat people. One, if you don't treat your people right in your company, I guarantee you somebody else will. It's very simple. It happens in sports. It happens in media. It happens in Hollywood. It happens in churches. It happens in countries. Iran didn't take care of their entrepreneurs well. So what happened? They left. California doesn't treat their entrepreneurs well, so they leave to Texas. If a man doesn't treat their woman right, she leaves him. If a woman doesn't treat her man right, he leaves her. This is not a technical, complicated, concept. And the other thing that we treated was this. I'm willing to share every single thing I know with the people I work with, people that work with me directly, as much as I can for you to leave me and go compete with me. But I'm going to treat you so good that you never, ever want to leave me. And that philosophy is what helped us take the company that we have from where we were at to now having Silicon Valley companies investing into our company and now being recognized as the fastest growing financial firm in America. So long answer to two questions you gave me, but I wanted to make sure I put both of those answers in your questions.
No, that's great. As you guys have started to go through this growth curve, what is your role at the company, and what challenges have come up during this massive expansion? Because when you go from the guy and you're doing the majority of the sales and the marketing to all of a sudden having 2,000 to 3,000 people on your team, your duties and your role is going to change. What has that looked like for you?
Very good question. First things first, I'll tell you what things we've had to overcome. Because anytime, look, it's easy to, it still requires discipline, but there's a big difference between being a person who runs. If you're a realtor making $500,000 a year selling homes and you got an assistant and two assistants that are helping you out, that's fine. That's like, I consider that a tennis player. Some people prefer playing tennis. Some people prefer playing golf. Some people prefer playing, ping pong. Why? Because you control the game. If you lose, it's because of you. If you win, it's because of you. I prefer football, basketball, baseball more because I can scale more due to building a team together. If one athlete gets hurt, he's done. That brand, Tiger Woods, is done. He's got a shot at building Jack Nicklaus, but if that brand is done, that back is not going to let him be Jack Nicklaus. It's game over with. If a team has a player that gets hurt, they can scale it. Running a company is realizing very quickly that you cannot build it big and scale it all by yourself, and you don't know everything. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll start putting the lens on, and the lens is purely to start looking at for your weaknesses. Simple as that. So you wake up and you say, what am I weak at? I am not good in compliance. Well, we need to go recruit the best compliance guy in the marketplace. That's what I did. What are we weak at? Well, we just got sued by a $400 billion company a month after I started the company. I don't know anything about law, at least not as much as I need to. I need to go find the best attorney. So I go get the attorneys that help Google and Facebook go public. Here we got operations. We're having operational problems. What do we need to find? I need to find somebody that's good in operations. So I went and recruited a guy that I knew very closely. We were friends for 6 years. And he had taken Jamdat public with 7 of his friends. And they sold Jamdat to EA Sports for $680 million. And this guy was a former CEO of GoTV. And he was a former founder of Premier Digital Publishing. I brought him in. I said, I need you to help me with operations. And I said, hey, we need some investors to help us with the software that we want to buy that's going to cost a few $1 million. We went and got a Silicon Valley investor because it's constantly focusing on your weaknesses and finding people that we can replace that can run the weaknesses of your areas that you're not good in to help drive that. Now, here's another part. The other part is being honest with yourself and realizing who you are. A lot of times people are founders and they think just because you're a founder, you're a CEO. That's not necessarily true. Many founders can stay a founder forever, but you may be better at operation. You need to step away and bring a vision person in. You may be a founder of a company and you think you're a CEO, but you're more of a CFO. You spend way too much time being conservative with your finances and investing into the company, and the company's not scaling. You may be a founder, but you think you're a CEO, but you're really a salesperson. You're very good at driving a sales force, and a CEO thinks differently than a salesperson does because a salesperson is just thinking about the next sale to make $40 grand in a month. versus a CEO is thinking about how to scale the business and work on the business. So it's identifying who you are. It's understanding that throughout the process of scaling the company, you're going to have to slay a lot of dragons. And if you can handle those and constantly find ways to recreate yourself and put a strong team around you with your weaknesses, all of a sudden you're going to wake up to a good-sized business worth $100, $200, $300 million, telling yourself, wow, this is pretty exciting on what happened here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. If you had to, put a tagline next to the word entrepreneur, I would have to say that it's just professional problem solver. It doesn't change. Every day is a new problem that you've got to figure out. And that's essentially what we do all the time. That's awesome. So, you've got PHP, which is going really well. And now you've got, for a lack of better term, correct me if I'm wrong, but your Valuetainment brand, which you're making these motivational videos. You're doing a ton of, free training videos for entrepreneurs. You've got, 180,000 something, 170,000 subscribers on YouTube, a couple 100,000 fans on Facebook, 280,000 fans on Facebook. And you're putting out a ton of really great training content for entrepreneurs. As far as I can tell, you're not really monetizing it in any way. Why are you doing that? Why are you putting the time into, sharing your lessons with the world?
That's the question everybody wants to ask, isn't it? It's so interesting. It's coming up a lot lately. And I'll get right into it. I'll be very transparent with you. I grew up in a family with a mother who was a communist and a father who was an imperialist. Okay. And my mother, her family's Bible was Communist Manifesto. Okay. And that's by Karl Marx. And the concept of bourgeoisie and, all these other things that I had to grow up with. And I was fed the fact that rich people are greedy people. They're bad people. All they care about is money and power and that, all this other stuff. And on my father's side, him being an imperialist who was a very big fan of Reza Shah Pahlavi before he was exiled, and then he died right after the exile. I think he died in San Antonio or somewhere around there. He was about hard work. And my dad didn't respect lazy people. He couldn't stand lazy people. And I'm a kid growing up, and I'm seeing both sides of the philosophy. And I haven't made up my mind on what makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm fully confused. My mother makes sense when she says, look at that person. The moment they became rich, we never saw them ever again. And my dad would say, look at this person. Every single time I see them, they just want to ask me for money and beg me for money. I'm so sick and tired of it. Why don't you get your ass up and go to work? And so I'm still going through this process. I'm maturing to try to find out who's right, who's not right. And then I start a company. Then I start a business. Then I get to work. Then I start realizing here's a guy named Patrick Bet-David who had given up all hopes on his dreams. A 1.8 GPA kid who goes and joins the Army. And when I'm in the Army, Mike, I go to my recruiter. They come up to me. It's time for me to ETS, which is leave or re-enlist. And me and my colonel, we had a very good relationship together. Colonel P. Cox, till today, I respect that man tremendously. Just a class act of a leader, the type of man you want to follow to war. Just think about a man's man who you love. This is the guy. Lots of respect for this man. I'm a 20-year-old kid, and he's 17 years my senior. He's probably my age today while I'm 20 years old. And he says, Patrick, Bet-David, we want you to re-enlist. Anything you want, I'll get it for you. We'll go to Virginia and get the orders for you. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? Really get out of the Army? I don't have a degree. I'm not smart. What am I going to do? I said, I want to go out there because I spoke 5 languages. I said, I want to go Special Forces. I want to do Ranger School. I want to go to DLI, which is linguistic school they have in Fort Planet, which is Monterey, California. Everybody wanted to go there. And then I said, I want to go to Sears School. Sears School, as you go to, they teach you how to be a POW. They break small bones. It just, they train you to see how tough you can stay. And I said, I want to go to Vicenza, Italy. Vicenza, Italy, they had a unit over there in the military, the Army. I want to go to Vicenza, Italy, because in my mind, the most beautiful women in the world are in Vicenza, Italy. Go figure. I listened to one Italian song and I fall in love with Italian music, Italian ladies. So they said, no problem. They go to Virginia. They get my orders. They come back and they said, Pat, congratulations, Bet-David. Tomorrow's we are recognizing and we're giving you the Army Accommodation Medal to give you your orders of going and getting everything you wanted. I'm on fire. I call my dad. My dad's so proud of me. He buys me a camera. He sends me this camera. He says, if you re-enlist, I'll buy you a camera. He buys me this $125 camera, which is such a big deal back in 99. I'm so excited about this camera that's coming in. And then that night, I go to sleep. At 12:15, I get a phone call. And Mike, no one calls me at 12:15 at night. I got formation early in the morning. So I pick up the phone. I said, who the hell is calling me at 12:15? It's a friend of mine. His name is Kogan Alaverdian. Kogan's the only guy that ever came and visited me in the army. And when he did come and visit me, let's just say all the other friends, if they knew what happened to him, everybody else would have come and visited me because he had the time of his life when he came in. I took him to Panama City. We just had a very good time. He called. He says, hey, Pat, what's going on? I said, nothing, man. I said, it's 12:15. He says, look, something told me I had to call you. I said, dude, I got to go to sleep. He said, what's going on? I said, you have no idea what just happened. I'm re-enlisting. I got everything I asked for. They're giving it to me. He says, what do you mean you're re-enlisting? He says, I thought you're getting out. I said, no, bro, I'm staying in 6 more years. I'm going straight to Vicenza, Italy. He said, dude, you can't do that. I said, listen, you can't. I'm done. I've already made my decision. Pat, you cannot do that. You got to get out. I'm sitting there saying, what is this guy telling me, man? I said, I already told my dad the camera's on its way. He's like, what camera? I said, my dad bought me a flipping camera, man. If I say no, my dad's going to be disappointed for the rest of his life. He says, no, Pat, just hear me out. You can't get out. He says, just give me an hour. And this is family to me. He's pretty much like a brother to me. For 1 hour, he talks to me. You know what he says the entire time, Mike, to me on the phone? The entire time he tells me how much he believes in me. And I had never experienced that in my life. I don't come from a family. The Middle Eastern family is not a family of, you can do it, Mike, go get him. Whatever you put your mind up to, it's the complete opposite. You can't do it. You were not meant to be rich. We're average and ordinary. If you go in the military, if they even take you, you're lucky. You know, just think about it. We're not that smart. That's what we were fed. So I bought it. And this guy, for once in my life, made me question it. And I believed him. He says, sleep on it. I didn't sleep all night. I woke up in the morning, went to Colonel Peacock's, and I told him, I said, I am so disappointed to do this to you, but I cannot stay, and I got to get out and pursue my dreams. And he gave me a look I'll never forget till today. But they took my medal away, which made sense. I fully understood it. And long story short, 2 months later, I left the military because it was my time to leave. I got it and came back home. June of 99, I became a U.S. citizen. I was in the Army the entire time with a green card. I became a U.S. citizen, and I realized that moment, from that moment to now, Pat being worth whatever the number, $100 million that you want to say today based on all my assets, everything combined together. I shouldn't be where I'm at right now, Mike. I should not be. Patrick should not be where he's at right now. Valuetainment is purely an outlet to spread the concept of capitalism, entrepreneurship to people from all over the world with a certain message of not just motivation. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are just about motivation, motivation, motivation. We actually attack the how-to concepts. We attack how to hire, how to fire, how to deal with this, how to run a company with family, how to do all this other stuff. And it's turned into a phenomenon. We were not expecting it to be this. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we had 22,000 subscribers. And now we're at 170,000 subscribers. And we didn't see this taking place. But it's spread. And it's to talk to those entrepreneurs around the world who maybe have some doubts. And we can give them some direction to go out there and win big. And obviously, there's a bigger vision to it, what we're doing next. This is going to become a organization that's going to bring entrepreneurs from around the world together. And we're going to spread the message of capitalism in a way that no other organization in the history of mankind's ever done. And we'll lead that soon. But this is just the beginning.
Very cool. Very cool. I dig it. Very similar to the mission here at Self-Made Man. You know, I look at the world today and how quickly things are changing and how many forces that are diametrically opposite of each other are basically clashing, in a cultural perspective. You see, you've lived it, but you see these different sets of values coming together in very real physical ways. And I feel very much like American entrepreneurs are having to shout and to fight for the world's attention to say, hey, this is the right path to go down that leads the world to a better, more prosperous place, because it's been, getting drowned out in a very big way over the last 5 to 10 years. I don't know if you've noticed that or if you would agree with that as well, but that's what I've seen.
Oh, we are on the same page, Mike. It's very obvious. There's a black eye to entrepreneurs and there's a black eye to capitalism. And I think the last guy who was around that was very good at selling the concept of capitalism well was a guy named Milton Friedman. And we lost Milton Friedman a couple of years ago. But I think the marketplace, the world, is desperately looking for the next generation of Milton Friedman of selling that message to the world. And I'm here to tell you, social media has made the world a lot smaller place. And the only place is, like, I got an email this morning from a guy who lives in Rasht, Iran. And he watches all my content underground, illegally, with an illegal server. That's how he watches all my content, illegally. And he says, there's turned into a small little community here that watches all this stuff. He's got 3 startups that he sent me the link to. And he said, I'm doing what I'm doing. But if anybody knows that the message of capitalism is spreading in Iran, we'd all be in trouble. And so technology and social media is going to allow us to get into certain places that people can watch and see this type of content. You still have places like China that doesn't allow for Facebook or doesn't allow for YouTube or Twitter or some of those things, but there's still ways to get the message across. And I think eventually the world's going to know how proven, how effective the system of capitalism is. And I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, agreed. So, we're at the start of a new year here today, and people are going to be determined to make the most of it. Everybody's making their goal sheets, right? And, what they want to accomplish for the next 12 months. What is your advice to them as far as how they can take their lives to the next level?
Yeah, it's the season to write New Year resolutions, right? Here we go. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to change. Here's what's going to happen with this. Yesterday, I go to the gym. The gym was packed. I'm telling myself, I haven't seen the gym this packed. I've been in the gym business before. I said, I'll give it 3 weeks. It'll be back down to the same empty parking lot as it was before on December 22nd, not necessarily January 1st. No one's going to go to the gym anymore. The diet, sales on bread is going to go back up again. Sales on rice is going to go back up again. Sales on grains is going to go back up again. And candy. Ice cream's not going to be sold a lot between the 1st and the 21st, but it's going to be after that. So here's what I would tell you. I think the biggest challenge, every single person that writes down their business plan and their goals is simply one thing. And here's what it is. If you had to question one thing, if there was one thing to question this entire year, if there's one thing to question this entire year, is the following thing. Is it your truth or is it the truth? Let me say it again. Is it your truth or is it the truth? What do I mean by this? Let me explain. If I'm somebody that's listening to this, I'm going to take every aspect of my life and belief system that I have, and I'm going to write it on a sheet of paper. And it's a very simple exercise. Take all the different aspects of our life, for instance, marriage, okay, health, sex, finance, faith, business, whatever it could be, relationships, friendship, and write down your philosophies on all of those things. Write down your philosophies on all of those things. And then ask yourself the question, is that the truth or is that simply your truth? Is that the truth or is that your truth? Here's what I mean. The biggest challenge anybody's going to have with writing New Year resolutions or new business plans or new life goals or anything it is, nothing's going to change unless if they scratch out their truth that they have convinced themselves to believe and they've sabotaged themselves to believe. They need to change that and ask themselves if it's the truth in order to go into a certain level of their lives they've never been before. Because if you don't scratch that part, our life's going to stay the same. For instance, say there's 4 people in your life you cannot stand right now, okay, that are relatives or friends. Ask why. Why can't you stand them? Why do you not like them? You know who it is. Everybody's got somebody that they don't like. Why don't you like that person? So, I just don't like that guy because all he did is, he made money and all of a sudden he changed or he did this. Well, maybe you need to ask yourself, why they changed. Maybe it's tough to constantly be around people that all they want to talk about is sports and talk about what their exes did and talk about what people in high school are doing. And that person has graduated that mindset. It's like somebody that's stuck in 7th grade and he's already in college. It's tough for a kid in college to spend time with somebody in 7th grade. So we need to recondition our truth in order to graduate this level of thinking we have for us to get to the next level. And so in 2017, our New Year resolutions in 2018 are going to be based on an upgraded version of us because now we're living on new truth. And I think that's the only way really that we can change a lot of our life experiences. I think that's the only really way for us to go to levels we've never done before or never been before and reach new heights and actually get close to our capacity if we change the way we view in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, agreed. Just change your story, change your story, change your destination and your results. What has been the biggest truth that you have had to reset for yourself personally?
Recently or for years?
Your pick.
I mean, if it was for years, it was how I viewed rich people. I couldn't stand rich people for the longest time. I thought all they cared about was money. I mean, I thought rich people were bad people. I thought they were greedy. I thought they only cared about them. And I had to figure out a way to do math and had to realize that the only way one can become a millionaire is to help 20 different people make 50 grand a year, is to help 5 different people make 200 grand a year, is to help 2 people make $500,000 a year, is to help 10 other people make 6 figures per year. The only way a person becomes a billionaire, is you need to have a lot of people that become millionaires. You need to have a lot of people that become decamillionaires, and a few people maybe are going to make $100 million working with you. I mean, that's how the concept of Apple did well. That's how the concept of Microsoft did well. And so while people sit there and they say rich people are greedy and all these other things, that was one of the things that had to change. Another one was faith. I was an agnostic atheist for 25 years of my life. And I had to start asking some real truth. And I had to start going to every single religion in the world and, that I had access to. I would go to Baha'i. I would go to Scientology. I would go to Mormon, Jehovah, 7-day Christian, Muslim, Judaism. Catholics. I went to all of them. I just wanted to know why they believe what they believed. And I started realizing there's a certain trend between the belief systems, and there's a certain things that create something into religion and that leads to a certain, and all this, I just had to study that because I had to figure out for myself. And I think more now it's making myself realize that in order to deliver the message of what I believe in right now with the concept of capitalism and entrepreneurship, the only way to do it at the highest level is to go and take the media side to the next level. It can't just be I've been saying the same message for a decade, but the moment we started saying it on a national platform 4 years ago with social media, now it's reaching 1 million, 2 million people a month. Now it's a whole different story. So it's a constant scratching the mind to see what is possible is even bigger than what we really wanted to see possible. And now I can't even talk about some of this stuff because some of the stuff I talk about actually scares people off. So I'll leave it at that.
Very cool. Well, you've got a hell of a story, my friend. It's definitely one of the most fascinating I've ever heard to see someone go from such an extreme on one end of, life's experiences and value sets to the complete opposite in the other. Incredibly inspiring, and you've made a lot of right decisions that have allowed you to achieve the success that you've achieved. And you're giving back in a huge way, and to know that there are young entrepreneurs, in basements willing to risk their lives and their freedom just to watch your stuff is awesome. So where can everybody go to connect with you and to follow your work and to plug into your message?
YouTube has by the way, first of all, Mike, thank you for the kind words. I've done my research on you as well, and pretty much anybody I've spoken about, Mike Dillard, had nothing but good things to say about you. So the world needs more Mike Dillards to do what you're doing to be able to impact people's lives as well. And I know you know it already yourself, but sometimes when you're there, it's we need to hear it again. And I just wanted to put it out there as well for you to hear that too. So appreciate your work. But going back to the question as far as where I can be found, most of my content is on YouTube. You can find my stuff on YouTube. I just simply type in Patrick Bet David. My last name is B-E-T David. Just put it together, or you can type in Valuetainment, and subscribe to the channel and put the alert button next to it so the videos come up. We do videos pretty much on a daily basis outside of Sundays and Saturdays. Fridays, we do case studies. Tuesday, Thursdays, a how-to. Mondays is Motivation Monday, and then we're adding additional content with contributors that'll be joining Valuetainment in 2017. And then I answer questions and I respond back on Snapchat. Especially if it's videos being sent, because I can respond back a lot faster. My Snapchat user ID is BetDavid19. That's BetDavid, the number 1, the number 9, BetDavid19.
Awesome. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for the time today. Again, this was a heck of a story. Everybody go connect to Patrick on the resources he just gave you. We're going to put links in the blog post as well, if you guys would like to follow up. And thank you again for the time today, Patrick. It was awesome. And thank you all out there for your support and for listening to the show or sharing it with those you care about. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.